The truth about plastic. Long summary. More than 8 million metric tons of plastic end up in the world's oceans every year, creating a swirling mass of plastic debris that does not decompose. It's estimated that 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic litter have accumulated over the years. A few 100,000 tons float on the surface, while the rest litter the deep sea in one form or another. All the plastics that have ever been produced still exist in the environment, albeit in tiny fragments called microplastics that marine animals mistake for food and enter the food chain, eventually ending up on our plates. There's this notion that plastic pollution is something that happens in far-off places like the ocean and landfills. But the reality is, it's happening right here in our own communities, in our immediate environment, and even inside our homes. The truth about plastic reveals the current state of plastic pollution and their circumstances and events that led to the plastic crisis. It underscores the role of big companies, governments, and consumers in perpetrating the problem of plastic pollution. This book presents the issues in 6 eye-opening chapters, which will help readers understand how the miracle material became the planet's public enemy number 1. It also serves as a blueprint on how to reduce our reliance on plastic and navigate our way to a truly plastic-free society. It offers actionable steps for consumers and poses a challenge to the real perpetrators of plastic pollution. It hopes to bring awareness to the problem and remove the cloak of secrecy and deception to protect the planet from the devastating effects of plastic pollution. The rise of plastic. This chapter presents the chronological events that led to the rise of plastic as one of the most versatile materials in the world. It's important to remember that plastic wasn't always bad. In fact, it was seen as a miracle material that would change the world. In 1856, the first man-made plastic was created by Alexander Parkes. This new material was made from cellulose and looked like ivory. Parkes named his invention Parkesine and displayed it at the 1862 Great International Exhibition in London. Although Parkesine was not commercially successful, it paved the way for future plastics. In the early days of plastic, it was seen as a material that had the potential to revolutionize society. It was strong, lightweight, durable, versatile, and cheap. It's every manufacturer's dream because it makes their products much cheaper to produce. It was the invention of Bakelite in 1907 that marked the beginning of modern plastics. However, it wasn't until after World War II that plastic really became big. It was during the war that new uses for plastic were found, and it became an essential part of the war effort. After the war, plastic continued to be used in a variety of ways and became an integral part of our lives. It was used for everything from packaging to construction to electronics. Plastic is so pervasive that it would be difficult to imagine life without it. Things have become a little bit problematic with the shift to single-use plastics. In a world where everyone is constantly on the go, it is no wonder that single-use plastics have become so prevalent. They are easy to use and dispose of, and they don't require any special care or attention. The prevalence of plastic gave rise to throwaway culture, born out of consumerism and convenience. With the advent of mass production, companies could produce more goods at a lower cost. This made it easier for people to buy disposable, single-use items like cutlery, plastic bags, and packaging. However, the convenience of single-use plastics comes at a cost. Plastic pollution reared its ugly head in the 1960s, but the first scientific findings on plastic debris in the ocean were only published in 1972. Plastic litter continued to float in the ocean through the 1980s. It was in 1996 that the plastic trash vortex was discovered and named the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which now covers a surface area of 1.6 million square kilometers. It's the face of the plastic pollution problem that we are grappling with today. Drowning in plastic. Plastic production has increased dramatically due to the high demand for it. Most of this increase is due to the growth in demand for single-use plastics, such as packaging. Plastic packaging accounts for more than half of all plastic produced each year. In 1950, 1.5 million metric tons of plastic were produced globally. In 2021, that number had increased to 380 million metric tons. This increase in production is due to a number of factors, including the growth of the global population and the rise in consumption. The problem is that much of this plastic ends up as waste, and only a fraction of it is recycled. Since plastic takes hundreds of years to break down, the pollution it causes is long-lasting. When it breaks down, they don't leave the environment. The microplastics stay at the bottom of the ocean, where they harm marine life and disrupt the ocean ecosystem. Plastic litter that remains on the ground in landfills are spread through air, water, and wildlife, which contributes to the spread of plastic pollution everywhere. Plastic waste has been found in every corner of the globe, from the Arctic to the Marianas Trench. Both China and the United States are among the biggest contributors to plastic pollution as a producer and a consumer, respectively. Rounding out the top 5 biggest polluters list are Germany, Brazil, and Japan. While consumers are often blamed for the growing problem of plastic pollution, it is important to remember that big corporations are the even bigger culprits. After all, they are the ones producing all this plastic in the first place. Despite the growing evidence of the damaging effects of plastic pollution, many corporations continue to deny the extent of the problem and downplay its effects on the environment. As a result, there is a lack of corporate responsibility when it comes to cleaning up plastic pollution. What's particularly maddening is that the corporate polluters are pledging and implementing false solutions to plastic pollution. There are many initiatives underway to try to reduce our reliance on single-use plastic, but so far they haven't made much of a dent. In fact, global production of plastic has increased steadily over the past few years. These efforts do not move us away from single plastic use. In order to combat this growing problem, we need to pressure these companies to change their ways and find more sustainable materials and methods of production. The government isn't helping all that much either. Although some legislation has been established, such as the Microbead-Free Waters Act of 2015, there is still a long way to go in terms of reducing plastic pollution. One of the biggest problems is that many countries do not have proper waste management infrastructure in place, meaning that a lot of plastic ends up in the environment. Even when laws are enacted, they are often not enforced properly. There needs to be a greater focus on education and awareness raising about the issue of plastic pollution, as well as more investment in infrastructure for waste management. Only then will we be able to make a dent in the problem. Plastic habits. As consumers, our plastic habits significantly contribute to plastic pollution. From birth to adulthood, we consume plastic and are exposed to it in one form or another. The most widespread waste items polluting the world's oceans and waterways are plastic bags, plastic bottles, food containers, cutlery, wrappers, and plastic caps and lids. These are largely single-use plastics used in packaging consumer products. Our over-reliance on these items has resulted in the deplorable state of the environment and oceans as a result of plastic pollution. Everyone is guilty of it, but we have to realize that the convenience that it gives us has a huge environmental impact. That's why there is a need to curb our plastic habits. We can reduce the demand for single-use plastics by refusing them when we can and recycling them when we can't. We can also support businesses that are working to reduce their plastic footprint. When we make an effort to buy from companies that are environmentally conscious, we send a powerful message that our advocacy is important to us. And as more and more consumers demand sustainable products and practices, businesses will be forced to change their ways in order to stay competitive. We can also support businesses by spreading the word about their good work. Social media is a powerful tool that can be used for good, so if you see a business doing something great for the environment, share it with your network. Devastating impact. As the world's population continues to grow, so does the amount of plastic garbage that we produce. When plastic is thrown away, it often ends up in landfills. There, it can take hundreds of years to decompose. As it decomposes, plastic releases harmful chemicals into the ground and air. These chemicals can pollute the soil and water and cause health problems for people and animals. Plastic pollution isn't just an eyesore. It can also be harmful to wildlife. Animals can get tangled in plastic waste or mistake it for food. Ingesting plastics can cause serious health problems and even death. But plastic pollution is not just an environmental problem. It's also a social, economic, and health issue that must be addressed. In many developing countries, a large portion of the population relies on fishing for their livelihood. These communities are now facing a new threat in the form of plastic pollution. Fisherfolk and fishing communities are already feeling the effects of plastic pollution, as fish are becoming increasingly contaminated with microplastics. This contamination not only affects the quality of the fish, but also poses a serious health risk to those who consume them. The effects of plastic pollution on tourism are also becoming increasingly evident. In many popular tourist destinations, such as the Great Barrier Reef, Bali, and the Maldives, plastic pollution is affecting the operations of resorts and establishments that rely on the tourism industry. The environmental damage caused by plastic waste can deter tourists from visiting certain tourist attractions. It also affects the livelihoods of those who depend on tourism for their income. Not only does plastic pollution hurt the environment, but it also poses a serious threat to public health. Studies have shown that exposure to microplastics can cause a range of health problems, including reproductive and developmental issues, cancer, and endocrine disruption. The game plan. As the world becomes more industrialized, the production of plastic has increased dramatically. It is now used in everything from food packaging to medical equipment. It may not be possible to completely eliminate plastic pollution, but reducing the amount of plastic produced and used could go a long way in mitigating the pollution it causes. The good news is that we can all help reduce plastic pollution by making small changes in our daily lives. Something as simple as carrying a reusable water bottle or utensil can make a big difference. The best way is to re-energize the refuse, reduce, reuse, and recycle system. This is proven to be effective in fighting plastic pollution. Single-use plastics are a major problem for the environment. They clog our landfills and pollute our ocean, but we can fight back against plastic pollution by refusing to use single-use plastics, reducing our overall plastic consumption, reusing the plastics we do use, and recycling them when possible. Practical and actionable steps are detailed in The Truth About Plastic to guide people in how to start living a plastic-free life. Neutralize impact. Plastic pollution is a scourge to humanity and the planet. It harms marine life, destroys the environment, and threatens public health. The upside is that people are starting to take notice, and there are efforts underway to address the problem. These are in the form of environmental advocacies that span international and intergenerational coverage. Governments and private companies need to work together to create incentives for consumers to recycle plastic materials. For example, they could offer tax breaks or subsidies for businesses that use recycled plastic products or use alternative sustainable resources. In addition, municipalities could increase fees for residents who do not recycle their plastics, or they could mandate recycling as a requirement for all citizens. In partnership with non-governmental organizations with a heart for the environment, we can all work towards reducing plastic pollution and neutralizing its negative impact on our planet. The bottom line is that we need to take action now if we want to save our planet from further destruction caused by plastic pollution.